Welcome back to The Big Show. It's always nice to talk to a gorgeous friend who's got an amazing voice, Lynda Bellingham. How are you?
Oh, Alex, you're so kind.
Well, every time I get you on the programme, we're normally not face-to-face, but I get you to make funny noises at me because you've got one of those voices that it just does it for me.
Well, I'm speechless. No, and I must say, whenever I do voiceovers, I always get we want the nice, warm, mumsy tone, and I'm going, no, please let me do something really, really rude.
It's nice to see you because here we are in Birmingham today. You're on tour with Calendar Girls, and then we see you on Loose Women. It's amazing how people's career, when they've got talent, can change and go in different directions. And you've got this new book out, and you've had a hell of a life, haven't you, really?
Yes, I've been quite busy. I have been quite busy. It's very nice you say talent. I don't know whether... I think my son has just left drama school a year ago, and I've been saying to him, it almost isn't about talent. It's about... You've got to keep moving the goalposts and finding employment, to be honest. And there's so many of us. And, you hear all about the celebrity thing, but it's true. To be an actor is almost an impossible feat.
And it's also interesting when you look at PR and the publicity you can get from something like Loose Women, which frankly doesn't take a lot of talent, it takes a lot of mouth. And then here you are doing 8 shows a week and nobody knows about it other than those who see it.
Well, you see, you've got it in a nutshell. Why are you interviewing me? You're perfect. You understand it all. That's exactly right, but that's what you have to use, isn't it? You have to, and I think what Loose Women has done for me, and for which I'm, eternally grateful, is kept a profile. What a lot of actors are having to do is find the brand, be associated with some kind of brand, make your own brand. I hated all this, but that's what it's about, keeping your profile there to be able to go and do other things. But of course, you say people aren't interested in the fact you're toiling 8 shows a week and making people laugh, and that's all goes by the by. But listen, as long as I'm still doing it, I don't care really.
What is interesting on Loose Women is when you get those people on who have nothing to say, no talent, no direction in their life, and they're multimillionaires, and there they are, you're talking to them as if they're the biggest thing ever. There's an irony in this business, isn't there?
You've been looking at my face. My husband says, if you watch me sometimes, I forget that the camera is on me, and I am peering. I am so lemon-lipped. I'm looking them up and down. Because often there's a lot of surgery involved with some of these people, and I am peering at them. Appalled.
All right, let's start at the beginning. We've only got 2 hours to talk to you about your life and career, so we better get on with it. An interesting upbringing. You started in Montreal, where you were born, and then you end up here, but you've not got a Canadian accent or anything.
No, and of course, years ago, when I was first born, and I proudly, because I thought it made me look interesting, I said, I was born in Montreal, and people would go, oh, fine, why? And I'd say, well, my parents were in Canada. But of course, I had to stop then and not say what I've now been able to say in the book, which is I was adopted in Canada, because my lovely parents, Don and Ruth Bellingham, who are now sadly dead, did adopt me in Canada, and obviously didn't want anybody to know. They weren't horrible about it, but they just loved me, and they were very private people, and they didn't want all that entailed, and I completely respected them for that. So, I gave myself this sort of full stop and didn't have anywhere to go with it. So yes, I was born in Montreal of a Canadian mother who I never saw until I was 40. So that's the premise of the book, really. It's not theatrical in the sense that it's just about then I met this famous person and that famous person. I wanted to tell a story because over the years I've worked for Bernardo's, for instance, for a lot, when they've gone from their fostering and adoption home thing through to young people today and breaking the cycle, which is very much what they do now. And I've never been able to use my adoption to the fullest, which I can now do.
Did you find it easy to come to terms with the question, why wasn't I good enough to be kept?
Not really, no. And I think that is the big question. I think the thing about all these emotions is you have to front them up and be aware of them and take them with you and confront them, and then they don't fester.
How do you feel now about men? Because you've met a man now, Mr. Spain, who is wonderful. However, in the past, it wasn't so wonderful, and you learnt some hard lessons the hard way.
All I can say is that, you have to at least hand it to me. I didn't repeat myself. My first husband, hardly touched me at all. And the second one did touch me. And the third one does it right, as they say, third time lucky. I've never had a problem with men, except that I don't understand them. And I had very little self-worth. And I think I'm very hard on myself in the book about the drinking and about... I think certainly if I hadn't drunk, I wouldn't have done half the things I did. Although, again... people have said to me, but I was in the 60s. I was a child of the 60s. We were the victims of free love and all that entailed, and it was all very innocent, and that's what we all had to do. No, I don't have a thing about men. I love men. I just think I don't understand them. And I think that my second marriage, which is well documented and which I talk about in the book, that the whole thing about abuse, it's a big word and it covers vast areas in relationships. And some people might call one thing abuse that isn't abuse to somebody else. It's a bit like the bullying recently. You know, some people aren't good with people. But the biggest... I tend to think it's all my fault, and I wonder whether I would have got into that position if I hadn't had this sort of lack of self-worth, which again I talk about, and I think it's partly to do with being adopted, that I allowed myself to be led into that sort of slight victim mode. If I'd been a bit stronger about myself, maybe I wouldn't have found myself in that position.
Was there a point when you actually knew it was abuse? Because I'm wondering whether this was all retrospective.
Yeah, no, you see, you don't. A lot of it you don't. Some of it is obvious, and I try to. I didn't want it to be a book all about. That's why I've had such a horrible life, because those stories are all a bit dull, really, aren't they? Really, in the end, I know they are, and they're terrible. But
we need party stories with Christopher Biggins.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. You need a bit of that, and then I did, and then I had. No, and you don't. That is the hardest. And when people, the ultimate question everybody asks is why didn't you leave him? And it takes years. It takes years to get to a point where you have not the strength to leave somebody, where you have actually reached the point where you think it's normal. And you think it's normal to live with anxiety and fear. And it doesn't mean to say the person is ongoingly bad, ongoingly nasty, abusive. It's enough to frighten somebody once or twice. And you do believe, you live in hope that the human spirit is forever positive. You know, you think, I can change him. I will make it better. I will show this person how much I love them. I will make them feel secure. And you get through each day, and then you have children, and then and you have to earn a living, and the years go by. And then everything, all the strength leaves you, and you're so busy keeping it under wraps. This is the other anybody who's had a row knows how exhausting it is. You become exhausted with it. And even now, 12, 13 years on, I sometimes catch myself being anxious and think, no, I don't have to do that anymore. And it is an extraordinarily awful thing. But it's like all these things. It's a bit like an actor talking about acting. You can refer to it, but if you go on about it, you lose the point of it, really.
I'm wondering about the boys now and what they're making of the book, because that's Dad at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yes, and they haven't read it, and all I say to them is read it when you're ready to read it, and if you don't want to read it, don't read it. Because again, with a relationship that's been as dramatic as this one, that is the hardest thing. And people, why would I write the book and give my sons more grief? But I have reached an age where I think I do have to. It is my life, and because I tend to be non-confrontational, and I've tried hard to make their childhood as pleasant as possible. As adults now, whatever, all parents will tell you get blamed for all sorts of things, and they can blame me for whatever I think that these things need to come out. I really wouldn't force it. And I know it's hard for them. I realise that. But they are in a position as adults to not respond, to not listen to it. And we are two adults in their lives, their mother and father, and they have different relationships with us. So I have to let that go, really.
Almost a year ago, I sat in a similar studio with Colleen Nolan, who released her book, and she got in a whole storm with her family from things she'd written that they then denied. In one way, it's your word against his, and he doesn't have a right of reply. Did that ever bother you, that people could say, well, she's just making it up?
Oh, no, he does have a right of reply. I think it is the nature of a marriage, as I say in the book. Who knows what goes on behind closed doors? And I have only written it in a way that I leave people to draw their own conclusions. And he does have a right to reply. I think the hardest thing, yes, is to drag it all up again. I accept that is tough when one person is in the public eye and decides to do this. And I am sorry, but equally, I kept it under wraps. It's my life, and I have got tougher, and I have achieved more of myself in the last 10 years, 12 years, or found more of myself. And that's compounded with meeting Michael Pattimore and getting married to somebody who completely accepts me for what I am and doesn't think I'm a horrible person. So if you like, I've been given more courage to do it. And unfortunately, if I upset people, I do upset people, yes. But that's not the way I want it to be particularly.
You're incredibly open on things like Loose Women, and of course in this book you talk a lot about drink. And drink leads to a lot of fun for Lynda Bellingham, but it also leads to a lot of trouble, doesn't it?
Yes, I did. I went down some very rough roads along the way, and there's no doubt about it that it was drink orientated, and having given up drink. But you see, it's really interesting because the terrible thing about drink is you think you're fascinating and interesting and sexy, and of course you're not at all. It's all the worst possible things you could think. You're boring, repetitive and slaggy. I mean, there's no getting away from it. So, but I am very hard on myself, and I want people to understand, and I want young women to understand. I don't mean to be moralising at all. Who am I to moralise? But I really, truly believe that you can do far more. Less is more, in how you dress and be seductive and enjoy yourself. And I'm a great believer in people having good sex. I really think this is the basis of a good marriage, ultimately. So you do need to have a bit of a practice, but you don't have to fall over in the street before you do it.
And that really is something you talk about in detail in the book, your most private of private life. Why were you willing to write that when so many celebs wouldn't?
Well, of course, the terrible thing is I do have an ear for a funny story, and I do like to attack things with humour. So it would be remiss of me and churlish not to throw in some things that have happened to me that are funny. They're not that funny when they're happening to it's horrible, actually. But in retrospect, I can appreciate the humour. And sometimes I think things can be much more dramatic if people are laughing at them and they think, no, Plus, I'd hasten over, I can't say them on the radio, obviously, but my first marriage was a very strange setup. And I think that the shock value at the end of the chapter where I explain why it went wrong is important. Sometimes, if you like, okay, you could call that me getting my own back, but actually I did have to take it on the chin many times, standing in front of a woman, who was having it off with my husband behind my back, or thought I didn't know about it, and was taking the mickey out of me or scorning me or whatever. And so I have got my own back in a sense, but not. I didn't. It's not kind of. I haven't gone out to kind of expose people necessarily.
Let's just review the book then. Private life, we're happy?
We're thrilled, and we have learnt, this is the last time, the vicar at my wedding, the wonderful Peter Delaney, the venerable Peter Delaney, who is, when we got married, it's a church in the Round. It's St Stephen Walbrook by the Mansion House, and it was the prototype for Wren, for St Paul's, so it's quite posh. And as I walked in, and we walked up to him, he stood there, he said loudly, because it was mic'd, this is absolutely the last time.
So you've been told. Yes. Everything's fine with that. In the bedroom, we talk a lot about that in the book. Everything okay in the bedroom?
Yes, bedroom's fabulous. Hooray for the Somersetian. Because everybody thinks because I call him Mr. Spain, he's another continental. I hasten to say he's from Somerset. And yes, that's fine. Career, perfect, fabulous. I'm really happy about Calendar Girls because I feel I've made it my own. And it combines... I still slightly miffed that if you do comedy well, you're not quite as serious in the minds of people as if you're a drama queen. I read an article today by Richard Bryars, bless him. He has the same thing that, if you're comedy, it's a little bit second best.
Do you really care though at this point? Because let's face it, you've got nothing to prove now. I mean, you are who you are. Everybody knows your name and what you do. Does it still bother you if I were to give you a bad review from what I've just seen this afternoon?
Oh yes, gutted. I'd be gutted. Are you about to?
No, not particularly, but...
Yes, gutted. I want it. I hope, and I hope I never lose this, I want to be the best. Quietly. I don't want to tell too many people because then everybody will be looking at me to see my reaction. And I wasn't very good this afternoon, but I want to be the best. I want to be the best, and I still want to win an Oscar.
Yeah, but I don't know what that means, because to be the best actor to me means that it doesn't look like you're acting at all. And to me, when I see you, you don't look as if you're acting. Now, does that mean you're a bad actress and you're just doing a poor imitation of yourself?
No, I think that means I'm the best. Thank you very much. The interesting thing is about drama, the drama side. What you use as an actor is whatever you've got inside yourself, really. I mean, short of playing dead or killing somebody, if you're a method actor, you can get most things in your life out of yourself. It's just that most of us choose not to go to the dark bits, obviously. And the wonderful thing about playing baddies is that you get all those nasty things. I just would like a bit more of that, really.
Well, congratulations on being you. You are a legend, and everybody knows you and loves you for what you are. And don't change, because you don't need to. Don't worry about what anybody else says, and certainly not people like me.
You are nice. Please stay here, young man.
Your new autobiography is in the stores now, and I think it's going to be the talk of the summer, because there's a lot in there, and you've given those red tops miles and miles and miles of column inches. Congratulations on that.
Thank you, Alex. Oh, my goodness. I'm very pleased about that.
Give the name of the book so they know what it is.
It's Lost and Found.
Congratulations. Thanks for talking to me, Lynda.
Thank you very much.